my brothers, my sisters, and my ballers. Welcome back to another match day of What's Football with our fans, with your favorite social football analyst, Tipiso Pizzi, aka Tebzoro. To the ballers passing by, I hope you like what you see because I surely like what I do. And make sure to join the returning ballers who continue to show me gang love and appreciation by liking, commenting, as well as to subscribe. So with this match day, my ballers, I was just patiently waiting for the season to end as there were many reviews going around on the chat of the trebles, whether or not Man City would claim the treble, and with them claiming the treble, where will we rank them amongst the best teams to have ever won the treble. Now with it having simmered down and with us having wrapped our heads around it and transfers now happening, I guess we can speak on the greatest teams to ever win the treble. So with the top 5 I'm about to give you, obviously we can think of more than 5 great teams that have won the treble. So there are certainly a few notables that are missing out on this list. But let me start off by saying at number 5 we have the Bayern Munich team of the 2012-2013 season, coached by Jupp Heynckes. It was a strong, formidable German team, strong Bavarian team that had just come off losing to Dortmund in the league in the previous season, as well as losing to Dortmund in the DFB Pokal Cup, and then losing the Champions League final at home. When I say at home, obviously the Champions League final is played at a neutral ground, but the neutral ground chosen was the Allianz Arena, and they lost to Chelsea. The next season they came back blazing indeed, with new signing in Xherdan Shaqiri featuring a lot off the bench, as well as the power of Ribéry and Robben, as they were called, Robbery, together. Between the sticks, Neuer was still the main man, as he has continued to be for 10 years longer, and will probably continue to be when he comes back next season from injury. Down the left wing, they had a young, marauding David Alaba, who has shown over the years to become one of the best defenders. The centre-back pairing at that time wasn't the strongest, but it definitely functioned with Bastuba and Jerome Boateng being the main starting pair, although Van Buyten would come off the bench and sometimes start games just to bring in his experience. And then the captain, the leader, the man who led Germany to their 4th World Cup, would operate on the right, with it being Philipp Lahm, and Rafinha would show off the bench when they're winning with their big leads, as they continue to have in the Bundesliga. So this team, my ballers, had a solid defense to say, They came against good tests in the Champions League, sweeping aside Conte's Juventus in the quarterfinals before beating Barcelona 7-0 on aggregate in the semi-finals, and creating a German final played at the Wembley Stadium against Borussia Dortmund for them to complete their treble, and they purely were able to complete their treble. The starting pair in the middle of the park was usually Bastian Schweinsteiger with a young Toni Kroos, and having Luis Gustavo function off the bench, bringing in the hard tackling, being a destroyer, would certainly help in sealing results. There was still Thomas Schuck who'd featured there and there, but he was more so of a fringe player. And then in attack, before I get there, another key signing made that season was Javi Martinez from Atletico Bilbao, who at the time I think was the most expensive German signing. And obviously with years gone by, we'd see him play in defense and midfield, but injuries really hurt his career at Bayern. In attack, with the 3 behind the 1 in the 4-2-3-1 formation, Ribéry down the left, Thomas Müller in the middle, Robben down the right. You knew what Robben was capable of doing. You knew what Ribéry was capable of doing. But this was probably the season where we truly started to Vorma Thomas Müller, He came to his own, Thomas Müller was no more labeled as that kid. Even though still young, at the age of 23, 24, he showed us not that there is something there in this kid. scoring key goals, providing key assists, and assisting in behind Mario Mandzukic, the number 9 who ended up taking Mario Gomez's spot in the team. The number 9 who scored the key goal in the Champions League final to break the deadlock before Robben sealed the victory. If we look at this team on paper, during the time, German teams were strong. Germany were producing hot counter-attack football with the Pentagon formation as a 4-2-3-1. And this sort of felt like a change in football, away from the passing dominance of the Spanish teams and that tiki-taka feel. But we have to give them their flowers, including Jupp Heynckes, who was able to win his second Champions League after losing in the final the previous season. And that's where I end off with Bayern Munich. In 4th spot, it's the Man United treble winning team of 98-99. Yeah, Man United, Fergie's boys, the boys that continue to score in Fergie time. A hot run in the league, in the FA Cup, as well as in the Champions League. Peter Schmeichel was the man between the sticks, with it proving to be one of his final seasons in the 98-99 season. Dennis Irwin was still functioning on the left with Gary Neville on the right. And this was the season where the class of 1992 purely earned their stripes, Ferguson was able to claim a treble with a lot of academy graduates. Phil Neville off the bench. Wes Brown was starting to appear. It was his first season, even though he's not part of the class of 1992. But then, Giggs down the left wing. Bex, Nicky Butt, as well as the ginger man, Paul Scholes. Key match is the Champions League final. But before I get there, the Champions League run started with them being in the group of death with Bayern Munich, who they eventually beat in the finals, as well as Barcelona. They managed to get through that group before meeting Inter Milan in the quarterfinals, led by Ronaldo, overcoming a tough Juventus side with Del Piero and the best player in the world at the time in Zinedine Zidane in the semi-finals, with Roy Keane producing an iconic semi-final performance, even though with him getting a yellow card that got him suspended for the Champions League final, and Dwight York contributing for the winner. Paul Scholes also got suspended for the Champions League final in the second leg semi-final in Turin. And then to go on and win the final in that fashion, with the last minute winner, and with them trailing almost the whole game until the 85th minute. The lineup for that game was even sketchy, Obviously at the back, they had the back four, Dennis Irwin, Jaap Stam. Ronnie Jensen came in for that game instead of Berg playing with Gary Neville down the right. So Alex Ferguson had initially said he'd play Giggs down the middle, in the middle of the park, in place of Scholes and Roy Keane missing. But instead, David Beckham started in the midfield with Nicky Butt, with Giggs in the first half operating on the right and Blomqvist operating on the left. It was a whole change midfield, 4-4-2. Then up top, the twins, Dwight York and Andy Cole, with Andy Cole continuing to score many goals and Dwight York finishing that season as the leading goal scorer in the Premier League. Off the bench is where it mattered most. The bench won them the game. The bench won them the treble. The bench sealed the treble, with Teddy Sheringham scoring the equalizer off of a David Beckham cross, and then 20 legend himself, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, writing his name into the history books, scoring a winner at the Camp Nou that will never be forgotten, which is still one of the greatest Champions League finals and one of the most iconic comebacks. That's them in the Champions League. Premier League was won on the last day against Spurs, with the lob from Andy Cole. And in the FA Cup, that Giggs goal, the iconic Giggs goal, maybe the only Giggs goal that you know, with them running down the left wing against Arsenal in the semi-final replay of the FA Cup and then hitting a bullet into the roof. And that's how they won the FA Cup, and so as winning the Champions League as well, in getting the treble. The only treble that Sir Alex Ferguson ever got, as obviously many coaches have only won one. But then we step into the next team where the coach of this team has 2 trebles. I'm talking about Pep Guardiola's 2008-2009 Barcelona team. Oh my soul. The beginning of tiki-taka. The beginning of tiki-taka as it was. A transformative season, indeed. Ronaldinho left. Deco left. They tried to make Eto'o leave as well, hence why he only stayed 1 more season. But in came La Masia's academy graduates, Sergio Busquets, as well as Pedro off the bench, who Guardiola had used in the previous season in the Barcelona B team. Yeah, see, at playing football, at whipping opponents, this team truly knew how to do it. Xavi in that season ended off La Liga with 20 assists. 20 assists just in La Liga. Imagine. In the polls, it was Victor Valdez operating off the left. They had Silvinho with Eric Abidal switching. In the center of the defense, Rafa Marquez was still the main starter with Carlos Puyol. At times, Gerard Piqué with feature. And off the right, we saw a new Dani Alves, with it being his first season at the Camp Nou. Base of the midfield, number 28 was introduced to the world, Sergio Busquets. What a guy, what a talent. Taking Yaya Touré's spots and not having or allowing Seydou Keita to play. His partners in crime were Xavi and Iniesta. Maybe the greatest duo ever. Assisting and providing clinical passes for the attackers to finish with the deadly trio of Samuel Eto'o, Lionel Messi, as well as Thierry Henry. Now we may say they were lucky to win the treble, more so lucky to win the Champions League, but this team would glitter teams. Imagine going to Santiago Bernabeu and beating Madrid 6-2. That's what this team did. Yes, we can say the referee cheated against Chelsea, and that's how Barcelona got to the final. But at the end of the day, in the final, they delivered the goods in Rome, with them having an amazing performance against Manchester United. Terrorized them in the first half. Had the boys chasing shadows, as Man United were on a quest in that season to win 2 Champions Leagues in a row. Couldn't be done, with Samuel Eto'o scoring the opener and Lionel Messi sealing it with an iconic header off of Xavi's cross. Midfield was chasing shadows. Carrick was running like a headless chicken. Scholes chasing. Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez, their work couldn't pay off on that day. They were outplayed. Yaya Toure stepped into the defense. Can you imagine Yaya Toure in defense? We all can, but not at that age. A young Yaya Toure stepped into the defense. Midfield 3 still continued to do their thing in Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets, and were able to capture the treble for FC Barcelona. And with the next team I'm about to speak about, I'm still speaking about FC Barcelona, except the 2014-2015 team. Now here's why this treble team is greater than the previous one. If you look at the players who were in both teams, Lionel Messi 2015 is better than 2009 Lionel Messi. So is the 2015 Busquets, so is the 2015 Iniesta. There's many other players I could name, you know. PK was better. Okay, Xavi maybe not, with him featuring off the bench, but he would still deliver the goods. This team, coached by Luis Enrique, knew how to beat you. See, when you wanted to be beaten by a team, this was the team that would finish you. with them chasing Real Madrid all season in La Liga, in the second half of the season, they continue to close that gap. Continue to close that gap to Real Madrid. As much as can say that Real Madrid finished off the season with 90 points and had very key injuries during the season, with Modric and Ramos having long spells out of the team, Barcelona still delivered what they had to do. Suarez missed the first 4 months, and when he finally formed that partnership with Messi and Neymar, caused havoc. Whoever is in their way was dusted. PSG in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. What Suarez did to Luis won't be forgotten, with the nutmeg and then a far post finish into the top corner. Imagine going to the Parc des Princes, the first leg of the quarterfinals, coming away with the 3-0 victory against the Thiago Mottas, the Matuidis, the Ibrahimovics, Cavanis, Verrattis, Thiago Silva up there at the back. Couldn't fend them off, couldn't hold them off. In the last 16 before, they swept aside Man City. Then in the semi-finals, they had to come against their former foe in Pep Guardiola's Bayern Munich side, who were also missing key players for the tie, and which is said to be a tie where if Bayern Munich had their full squad, they may have probably won the Champions League. Messi delivered on the goods, as we have known and become accustomed to him doing, with him sending Boateng to the floor. Sending him to the floor, leaving him on the floor, and then lobbing Neuer. With the first leg 3-0 victory of the semi-finals at the Camp Nou, before going on to seal the deal at the Allianz Arena in the semi-final second leg. And then there was a task of facing Juventus. A tough Juventus side. A very tough Juventus side coached by Massimiliano Allegri, with Tevez up top being partnered by Morata. Formidable midfield of a crazy midfield four in Marquisio, Pogba, Vidal, as well as Andre Pirlo as the pivot. And that famous back three, Bazzagli, Bonucci, Chiellini, with Buffon between the sticks. The tactical masterclass that Luis Enrique produced on that day is quite iconic, with Suarez marking Pirlo off the ball. And it was a great final to watch, as Iniesta sealed his fate in the history books, becoming the only player to win man of the match in the Champions League final, World Cup final, as well as the Euros final. Barcelona were able to win 3-1 with Rakitic, Neymar, Suarez getting off the score sheets. Xavi came off the bench to lift the cup, and it became a party, A great three was formed that continued to score goals in the years to come, with Suarez, Messi and Neymar forming the MSN and becoming probably the most deadly forward trio we've ever seen. But that was the last treble that they would win, as well as the last Champions League that they would win. We shouldn't forget that they sealed La Liga with an away victory at Atletico Madrid at the Vicente Calderón, when in the previous season Atletico Madrid had sealed victory, had won La Liga at Camp Nou. So it was a bit of a revenge, bittersweet in a way. And now we come to the number one side, the greatest team to ever win a treble. Manchester City to 2022-2023. There are so many ways this team beats you. So many ways. And we saw Pep Guardiola show those many ways, with it being a transitional season, having seen Jesus go, Sterling go, Zinchenko go, Fernandinho go, mainstays of the team who had won so many accolades and trophies with the team. And then bringing in the new blood, Haaland, Alvarez, Akanji, Gomez, Calvin Phillips, who didn't even feature. He's avoided relegation by winning a treble. Imagine. This team had to fend off Arsenal in the league, Many new tricks were tried by Pep. times Cancelo out, Rico Lewis being played, diverting into midfield. There's a period where Bernardo Silva played as a left back instead of right wing. Mahrez was hot midway through the season just after the World Cup, and then somehow was no more a starter from March onwards. This team had so many ways to beat you. I haven't even gotten to De Bruyne and Haaland yet, who we knew was going to score so many goals off of the chances De Bruyne created. Cancelo had to leave, but they still soldiered on. Ake came into his own this season. Someone who struggled for game time in the past 2 seasons was a main starter this season. When Diaz came back from injury, in forming that defensive line with Ake, Diaz, as well as Akanji, and then a double pivot in front of them of Rodri and Stones, no one could beat Man City. No one could beat Man City. In front of that, you had Mr. Running Gundogan, and you know Gundogan with the running. Gundogan, when it comes to the end of the season, just becomes another Super Saiyan. Just becomes a whole different breed. Foden had a hot start to the season, and then after the World Cup, he couldn't get his place back. Jack Grealish took it. Mr. Gucci Grealish, the £100 million signing, finally paid back that money. Bernardo off the right, switching with Mahrez. Walker to defend against the fast men down the left. It was a tough season for Man City, you know. Chased Arsenal all the way until April before they could overtake them. And in overtaking them, sealing a great victory against them at the Etihad Stadium, winning 4-1, where Haaland bullied Holding and De Bruyne showed why he's the best midfielder in the world in that game. The Champions League run can't be forgotten. Last 16, Haaland scored 5 goals against Leipzig in the second leg. Quarterfinals, they beat Thomas Tuchel's Bayern Munich 3-0 before drawing 1-1 at the Allianz Arena to go through 4-1 on aggregates. And that was the first game where we saw the long ball being played. The new dimension that Haaland gives you. We normally have to play tiki-taka. We can now ping it forward into someone, which we've always seen Ederson do at times. You know, we know Ederson can give that 80-yard pass into the wing, but not for a striker to hold it. Now they had that man with Kevin De Bruyne running just off him. Gave De Ligt and Upamecano a tough time. A hella tough time. In the semi-finals, they had the task of holding off Real Madrid with a tough 1-1 draw in the first leg where Stones and Rodri couldn't really do their thing. It was one of those performances where Real Madrid deserves credit, but Man City stuck in and grinded it out before whipping them in the second leg. If it wasn't for Courtois, it could have been 7-0 or something. Haaland should have come out with a hat-trick. Bernardo scored the 2 first half goals to give them a breathing space going into half-time before victory was sealed in the second half. Having Walker nullify Vinny Jr., Benzema being nowhere to be found. And then the 2 finals following weekends, starting off at Wembley against their Manchester rivals in Man United, kicking things off 13 seconds into the game through captain Ike Gundogan. What a guy. What a guy he is. And then eventually also scoring the winner in that game, ending off with a brace that gave them the 2-1 victory. And then the unsung hero scoring the decider to clinch Man City's first Champions League title. Rodri. Man, oh man, Rodri. The last person who you'd have thought would score in the final for Man City got that goal, which got them over the line in sealing the treble and their first ever Champions League. There's many players who may never win a treble. You can win a league, you can win a Champions League, which Champions League will forever be greater. But to seal a treble in this way, with it also being your first Champions League, and adding Julian Alvarez into the history books alongside players like Varane, Roberto Carlos, Fred Muller, Beckenbauer, and becoming a few to win the World Cup and the Champions League in the same season. His contribution this season also can't go unnoticed. having proved vital off the bench and sometimes partnering Haaland as well, and being key when Haaland was missing in the cup competitions as well as in the league in the running when they beat Liverpool 4-1. That's what I mean with this team. There were so many ways and dimensions to beat you, hence why they're the greatest team ever to win a treble. And that's how we end off this match day, my ballers. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, live long.